Let's go through a very quick session on how to prepare your databases and your system to enable Resource Analyzer. So to do Resource Analyzer, the first thing is you have to have a connection to database. What I usually do is I create my database connection, and to be able to better separate the database, I usually create my own little custom database. So in here, in my system, I got a SQL Server database. So let's go to my SQL Server environment. While I connected WebFOCUS here as well. So doing two things in parallel. Let me cancel that for now. So we're going to focus on SQL Server. So I'm going to set up my repository in SQL Server for now. So to do so, again, using SQL Server Management Studio to get to SQL Server database. There we go. So I created a separate database just for the log file. So don't put it into your repository database. It's always better to have a separate database. So in here, I got my little database in here, which is going to be my logDB, and that logDB in here currently looking into, you see there's no tables in here. It's just an empty database. I usually set up my log database in the database. It's set up here. I got it. It's in here, ready to use. So what I do in WebFOCUS is in here, I go to my get data. And to make my life easier, I'm usually configuring a separate database connection. So in here, SQL Server, I configured a connection called logDB, which at the end in properties is using logDB, which is the database in my SQL Server, logDB. So I'm using that database as my default database. So I can test it from here, working perfectly fine, ready to go. The next thing important for report analyzer in here is make sure you test the bulk load capability. So to be able to use analyzer in a very performing way, make sure the bulk load is working. If not, you might want to fix it. So, but again, test your bulk load utility. It should get you something like load successful, then you're ready to go. So now to configure your resource analyzer, just go back to your configuration. And in here, there's resource management. So now we can configure it. So just hit configure. We're going to go for analyzer and governor. Go next. In here, you're going to select relational. And in here, you can now pick up that database, that logDB database that we created in the adapters. Allow it to create the repository. You need the owner or schema. For my specific case here, usually if you work with SQL Server, the standard schema is DBO. So I'm going to go for that one. We're going to turn on request monitoring, can do some more changes. You see here the load type is set to bulk. If you can't do bulk, you might go for table load, but again, you want to go for bulk load just because of performance reasons. Hit configure. And that's all you have to do to set up your database for Resource Analyzer. So now it's telling me, hey, it's configured. Now I want to, or I could enable certain databases or master files for monitoring, but it's enabled in general. And if you go back to SQL Server and if you refresh that list in here, you see it created those files, or tables actually. So by default, they're going to have the version number in here indicating that there are 493. And that's all you have to do to prepare your resource analyzer database for collection of data.